Let's go ahead and begin. I'll give opening remarks. If I can get a volunteer for the pledge. Somebody wants to do the pledge.
I'll do it.
Dale, will you do the pledge for us?
Yes.
Awesome.
I will.
All right, I'll get her started. Heavenly Father, grateful for the opportunity we have to come together tonight as a city council and also residents, and we pray that we'll be able to be guided and do the right thing for the residents and yet maintain safety and keep in mind the welfare and needs of the residents. We are grateful for our city, grateful for those that worked hard on the water issue over the weekend and spent their precious time here in the city doing that great work. Without guide and bless us all this evening in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's do a roll call. Paul, we'll start with you.
Paul Crook.
Ty Ellis.
Nelson Abbott.
Jared Peterson. David G.
Great. We need to get and then Tricia Thomas is absent. We need approval and adjustment on the approval of the agenda and a time frame adjustment. Motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Except you.
Passes. All right, we got a couple of minutes for public forum.
You're supposed to be on the telephone, Dave.
So are there people signed up?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to make sure everybody understands how public forum works before we get started. We need your comments to be in the form of a statement, right? Because we want to hear you, but we're not going to engage in the argument or discussions. And if that needs to happen, then you corner one of the council members outside of our meeting tonight. So make sure that we do that, and please keep it short, couple of minutes at the most. And if you're going to repeat somebody else's remark, just mention that you'd like to repeat somebody else's remark, and we'll get on. All right, Royce.
Travis.
Okay.
You're up.
All right. Do I stand? I've never.
You can stand, sit. You can lay on the floor. We really don't care what
All right,
you do.
I'll try to put it in a statement. So on the lot that was talked about with the trail that the groups that the city's trying to buy, we have owned that for 9 years now, and we were planning on building on it. We moved over to Santaquin, and now we're at a point where we're happy with where we're at. We're trying to sell that lot. We put it up for sale, 5/23/17, and then we've had a lot of potential buyers come in and put some offers on it. The latest one was Dirk Payframan. And he met with the planning department and was able to get the mailbox on the park drive, and the official address in the front of the house facing the cul-de-sac. That way the back face was previously it was a circle driveway, but we were trying to avoid any safety issues with that curb and that main road and everything else with that. So that was the proposal, but in order to do that, he had to buy that strip of land that was the horse trail before. And so he had agreed to purchase it, but that's when the city was talking about, decided that they wanted to purchase it to widen that road. And I guess that's it. So we want to have the main access and the address to the cul-de-sac side, and the mailbox down on the what's it called? Park Drive.
Shade, you understood all that. True?
I understand what he's saying, yeah.
Okay, good. Because you'll work through Shay on that, and we work, and
Yeah, we'll figure
we'll figure that out. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next.
Dale.
Dale,
Yeah, I would just,
the Honorable Bill Bigler.
yeah, see, discussion on the fence, Nelson and I came up before, it is that, there are a couple of points there. One is that if you have that house sitting there and they can only fence to there, you do eliminate about a third of their backyard. Plus, I think the city still has that requirement that if you are going to have parked RVs and stuff, it's got to be behind a view obscuring fence. And to do that, to get RVs in there and put them behind an obscuring fence, you'd have to have part of that backyard also. So personally, I think what Shay was saying is workable on that it can come out on this section. That gives them their full backyard. They still are that 3 foot high on that other.
Thank you, Dale. Next,
Julie?
Oh, me.
Julie.
Fabulous. Okay, so we talked with Paul about the retaining pond that is going in on Armstrong and Chrisley Lane, where the Arrive subdivision is. And we found out that apparently the city had made plans to make that a retaining pond, but when Arrive was selling the 2 lots on the side, they were telling the owners that it is supposed to be green, and we found out that it's not supposed to be that way. And so I want to propose that we make a neighborhood vote, because it sounds like the plan is to just put rock and a few trees, but I feel like we're not taking into account like erosion issues or weed issues, all the chemicals that would need to be sprayed if we keep it 100% xeriscaped. And I kind of feel like it's going to be an eyesore to our neighborhood if, all of the yards are supposed to be a certain percentage of grass, then why is that going to be 100% xeriscape? So I'd like to propose that we make a neighborhood vote or come up with another alternative of how we could make that a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to our neighborhood.
Okay,
That's it.
great. Thank you for the comment.
I have one more.
Okay.
I would like to also propose that we address flushable wipes in the sewer system. That was a concern in several cities that I've lived in before, and I'd like to see something in either our city rules that prevent people from using those, or if there's any issues with causing backup to the sewer system, that the owner that caused the backup is responsible for that, because I feel like that is a potential to cause a big financial burden on the city if that's something that we don't address.
Okay, great. Thank you for your comments, both of them. Next.
That's it on the public.
Okay, great. Thank you, and I do appreciate those, and I hope the council takes appreciation of it. Now you've talked to residents down there, right? So we can have further discussion on that as well, which we'll have right now. But we'll get
This
to
is
it.
that one,
Yeah.
and Dean, so. Dean's just putting in what was the city council approved for him to put in.
Okay, we'll look at those.
Before any houses were built, so.
Let's just look at that. Maybe you and I and Royce can get together and make sure we go through all that. Is that okay? Tree. Item number 1, Tree USA presentation.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor, those who live in a great city. My name is Scott Zeidler. I work for the Utah Department of Natural Resources, particularly the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. And the reason I'm here tonight is to thank you all for many years of service, including 2017, being one of 85 communities across the state of Utah recognized as Tree City USA. When I arrived just half hour ago to the meeting, I was watching the kids play their soccer games out in the fields, and there was 12 players, 2 coaches out in full sunlight, and they were running up and down. 25 people were under the shade of those trees, those cottonwoods, the maple, the other shade trees. 25 people who came to watch and support them were in the shade of those trees. And those trees were made possible by somebody 30 years ago who thought that it would be a great public service to have some shade. And we try to promote that in the main programs of the forestry division. One of the things that reminds me of this situation is about being part of a team. Those kids are learning some life skills and being part of a team, flourishing individually, but coming together to be part of a team. And that's what it takes to be part of Tree City USA. We asked the City Council 4 or 5 years ago to consider a tree ordinance, to put some valuable people in the work of managing trees. And this last year, those folks included McKay Lloyd, the Public Works Director, Brendan, I don't know his last name, he's the Public Works, he works for Parks, Stephen Peterson, a resident here, professor at BYU with an interest in forestry, and of course, I'd like to draw special attention to Dale Bigler, who I got a chance to work with 4 years ago when we were help formulating some issues of desiring to have trees in the public spaces here. This last year, Dale was recognized across the state of Utah for his work and was designated as the 2017 Citizen Forester of the Year. If you have a moment, I'll just read this recognition.
Absolutely.
In grateful recognition of dedicated service to the state of Utah, its citizens in the profession of urban forestry, we honor Dale today, the 30th day of January 2018, with the Utah Community Forest Council and the International Society of Arboriculture's Citizen Forester of the Year Award. Dale's an active tree steward for the community of Elk Ridge and a key proponent for establishing trees for its future population growth. Dale coordinates with neighborhood volunteer groups, city administrators, and a tree board to advocate for new tree plantings and to promote proactive tree management throughout the city. With Dale's help, the tree inventory management plan has been put into place. Dale successfully led the charge to earn 2 Community Forest Partnership grants from the division I work for. And through Dale's vision, as a community tree steward, new thoroughfares and trails are each planted with trees. They've also done around new parks and sports fields. Eagle Scouts regularly seek Dale's help, knowing that they'll get the support and city participation in their service projects. Elk Ridge will enjoy the benefits of the sustainable urban forest for many generations to come. For his distinguished service to the citizens of Elk Ridge and the community forests of Utah, it's a great pleasure that we, as the President and Board of Directors of the Utah Community Forest Council and the Utah chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture, extend our sincere appreciation and gratitude for all of Dale's hard work, dedication, and service. And again, that was bestowed upon Dale this last year at the Utah Greens Conference. And I just want to say thank you very much for providing support that Dale's been able to draw people together as part of a team to grow some trees along these trails and these new parks. And recently the Elk Ridge Drive, where the new Mount Nebo School District property is, getting some trees established there adjacent to that. Thinking 20, 30 years down the road, just like the benefits outside the west here, this ballpark with trees. And we recognize Utah is a growing state. We're going to lose a lot of our great pastures and farmland and orchards. And at some point, we embrace trees as a natural resource because we have to grow vertically to maybe separate people, give us a sense of place, our own unique little escape areas, like Dale's backyard, okay? And we do that in some regards with trees and public spaces. So thank you for your commitment to providing water, providing the workforce to make these things happen. And thank you, Dale, for giving us a good example of volunteerism and good work. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank
That's awesome.
Has been good. Actually, that Scott has been the driving force there. The first, when I first got on the council, we got a grant for $750, and we planted those 5 trees that are on the west side of the trail and the grasses and stuff. And then he said, actually, you got to set it up to just be a Tree City USA. Then you can apply for the 750, the 7,500 grant. And so that was what we did with his help. You know, you have to do a tree inventory, and he came down, and we went through, and he photographed and get a GPS out. We did a tree inventory of all of them that were existing. And then we applied for that grant, and all those, you know, the center trail down in the subdivision, and then the park, we planted that year. And then this last, then we did the center year. Actually, part of the requirement to get a grant, you have to be a Tree City USA. One of the requirements is you have to spend at least $2 per individual to qualify. You know, we've done that. The year that we didn't apply for the grant was when we put in the center planter, and we participated on all of that tree planting up the site, so we qualified. This is the 4th year that we qualified. And each year they present us with this Tree City USA flag that I gave one to Royce, but we really haven't had a place to fly that or to post that. And this is the one for this year, but a request, I guess, or a recommendation that I'd like to make to City Council is, you know, I've been looking at, you know, this one wouldn't need inside lanyard or any, you know, you could have it just flying, you know, regular. You can buy a 20-foot flagpole for about $150, and you can get them in either black or aluminum and stuff. I'd like to see us put this there at the start of where the new trees are that were planted, and just fly that Tree City USA flag there as a proposal. But maybe your Scott, come up here a second, and we'll present this officially to the city and get a photo.
go around here.
Oh, we have it so that it says Tree City USA. Maybe present that to the mayor. Yeah, so congratulations on being a Tree City USA
mayor.
As a mayor.
Oh, boy.
It is.
I think that's the first flag, or the first ribbon I've ever cut since being mayor. And that's what I expected this job to be, was ribbon cutting and baby kissing.
Yeah, it is great. Actually, the things that I think we accomplished in this regard, trees do make a subdivision. When we didn't have the ordinance in place, and they have 2 years to do their front yard, and a lot of them never did it. Actually, you see some of those that some are planted, some aren't. And actually, when Jim and I were working on it, you know, it wasn't a requirement that they had to plant those trees there. Now, I think that is one of the good things that we've done with that new landscape code. They put the $2,500 deposit down. They landscape it in a year, get it back, and it requires the 2 trees in the planter strip, inch and a half caliber.
Thanks, Dale. Appreciate all your hard work.
And actually, this does, in my opinion, that finishes off the parkway. That is a very attractive entrance to the city, one of the nicest of most any city our size. So it was great to serve with you, and I'm glad to be part of that Tree City. But think about that.
We will, and we can talk later. Thanks, Dale. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Appreciate that a whole bunch.
Leave that in your care and keep
In my care.
And if you want to add before your sticker.
All right. Tree USA, that's fantastic. Oh, fence code. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt. We have a new ordinance number, or does it matter, Royce?
This will be,
Ordinance number 18 dash.
6.
18-6?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 18-6 as outlined.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, and we have a second.
Okay,
You
now
want-
I want to have just
Before I
a
go any
minor additional
further,
discussion.
I would like to open up for additional discussion before I ask for,
Prior to the code change, did we ever have an issue where something like that actually happened, where there was a safety issue where somebody actually got hurt? As far as I know, the answer is no. That's why I'm okay with this. And it's not because I'm planning on putting a fence up anytime soon. Because I'm not. I've got other priorities. I've got more guns to buy.
Can we have any discussion or we're out now because it's gone to you guys?
yeah, it's gone to us.
Okay.
It's gone to us.
That's my piece.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I
Oh, roll call.
Oh, roll call. It's an ordinance, sorry. Thank you. We'll start with Paul.
Aye.
Nelson.
Jared's
Jared.
proposed nay.
Joe's a nay. Joe's a nay. Jared's a nay. And Dave.
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
almost
3-1. Now I don't have to play I have to show my cards. Do I?
I tried to make this a little bit to make you sweat.
All right, we have probably better if Shay or Royce explain the circumstances on the Harrison Heights durability termination. This is the one where we went back, right?
So, what we're doing, we haven't done this in the past, and this is a new step that the city wants to take. And basically, what's going to occur is at the time that we get close to the end of durability, which the city then has a walkthrough on the project just to see if there's warranty issues that need to be addressed. And basically what we're doing here is formalizing that. Now, this, we've got some subdivisions that have been out of durability for well over a year now, and we're not, there's not much we can do on those. We're trying to have the developers address a few issues there. So these subdivisions are going to come through and basically just recommending the termination of the durability, but basically closing out the project. We have some right now, for instance, Horizon View Farms. We did walk through with them, gave them a punch list. We have some subsidence on the trail along 11200 that they're addressing. They still need to do slurry seal on that. And we had some sidewalk curb and gutter issues to repair and replace some sections there. And they're taking care of that, so you won't see the letter on that till that's completed. But we're gonna go through basically, and so some of these you'll just get a letter because they have been out of durability for so long that we can't really do much with it. But we're just basically gonna go back through and try to formalize this on all the subdivisions, and then moving forward, you will see that, you'll see a formal inspection, and just like you received when you receive an acceptance, would be the same type of thing, a recommendation to terminate the durability. And then part of the reason this was brought up is Curtis was talking with staff about the need to be able to set a date that this stuff gets moved over onto the depreciation records. Can't remember the name of them, and so this also allows the city to have an official date that this moves onto the city's assets and can be depreciated from.
Yeah, we need the formality here.
Yeah.
Close this out and have record of it and everything else. So that's what this is.
So we don't take ownership of it on our depreciation schedule until we've finalized it. I always wondered when we took ownership.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because technically you take ownership at the time you accept the improvements, with the plat, of course, those improvements are dedicated and recorded. But yeah, as far as actually moving onto the asset list, and that's what this was trying to develop is, okay, what is that date that officially moves onto the asset list?
So anybody feel inclined to move on acceptance of the Harrison Heights subdivision phase 4 termination of durability?
I'll make a motion that we accept the Harrison Heights subdivision phase 4 termination of durability as presented.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Tentative 2018 budget. Again, this is to accept the tentative budget and to schedule a public hearing for the first
Meeting in June.
meeting in June, which would be June what? That's a Tuesday. Brilliant, Paul. What is it?
June 12th?
June 12th?
Yeah.
The first,
Well, it's
It's the first council meeting,
First
so it's the
council.
second Tuesday in June.
And one of the reasons we're waiting to June, we need the certified tax rates, and it just kind of clears up a few things. We need this depreciation number adjustments and the water and sewer, and
At least we get it a little earlier this year.
that's what they told me the goal is.
Any discussion further? Can we just, you okay moving to accept this tentative budget and to schedule a public hearing for June 12th? At which time, no, that's period.
Do you want to have any sewer discussions, or? That one you are going in with a negative number.
Yes, you are. That's, from a budget standpoint, we won't know the true up until we get the audit report clear into November. You know it's bad. It's been bad for years.
Payson and Salem kind of have us over a barrel, don't they?
Yeah.
To some degree. But quite frankly, so does the EPA.
That's where a lot
I
of
mean, that's where a big line share.
phosphorus and
No,
dissolved solids have to be removed.
That is the biggest portion of it. Otherwise, we'd still be paying $22 a month for our sewer.
Going back to outhouses.
That's that right? Dissolved solids, it's salts. I don't know what it is, but phosphorus and other
Nitrates.
stuff that causes algae in Utah Lake.
Well, we're scheduling the hearing. We're gonna, so if we accept this now, schedule the hearing, staff puts together a,
Final budget.
I mean, if we amend the fee, we have to, there has to be some public notice and other things have to occur.
To do what?
To adjust, yeah, to adjust the rate, we can't just,
That's just done by
That's done by
resolution.
resolution.
yeah, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, it is.
So, is it?
Uh-huh.
Where?
Fee schedule change, number 4. The only thing we haven't done is,
Now, on the fee schedule that we presented, we did.
Yeah,
put
it's
any
not in there.
additions
And
on the sewer.
I would,
nothing changed on that.
right, I would prefer to be as transparent as possible and have another fee schedule on the next council meeting so the public can see it if they want to see it, and that they can be aware and come in and comment rather than us, well, it's technically on here, let's just get it in there now. And maybe by our next meeting, we'll have maybe some better numbers than we've got right now. when Curtis does his thing between now and then. And it gives us as a council some time to bounce it around in our head and have discussions and go from there.
I know I know how you feel, but it would be obvious. I know you know this, right? It would be negligent on our behalf to ignore the problem.
Well, and I'm not saying ignore it, I'm saying let's
Right.
just give the public
What
what they need, because I don't know that 2 weeks is gonna change our financial position that drastically.
it won't. But I don't know if 2 weeks will get any more people down here.
Well, it may not, but when we raise it and they go, well, how come you didn't let us know? We can say, we let you know. Whereas right now, it'll look like we snuck one in. That's my thought on that. You know, because we've got to adjust the people that are north of 104 South, because Salem's adjusted their rates. And we know we have an adjustment with Payson, and we need to kind of know where that's going to shake out.
So what are you saying, we need to get this out through media or something, or what?
Well,
Because if we don't do that, no one's gonna know anyway.
well, sure. They're
Well,
not.
I don't think you ought to push a tentative budget until the numbers are right. I
Yeah,
mean,
this is tentative. We're gonna change it.
You can go ahead and say, I mean, okay, let's push it forward, and in the meantime, providing that Curtis does his stuff, so that come the hearing, we've got accurate numbers.
Because those numbers are going to change anyways. So
This is
we make a motion and approve this.
This is just a tentative budget.
Okay, I motion that we push forward the tentative budget for the hearing on the, what date was it?
12th.
The 12th of June,
So you accept the tentative budget and
providing that Curtis gets us accurate numbers and we post it.
well, we have to have a final budget.
Yeah, we do before the end of June.
Right?
State
We
code
have to
requires
have
it.
it, regardless
Yeah.
of the numbers that Curtis gives us, I
Well,
guess.
we'll have our hearing based on this budget.
Yeah.
We'll have our public hearing. But I also think that we ought to sit down between now and next time, and yes, I'm volunteering myself if that's what it's gonna take, to sit down, let's crunch those numbers and take a good hard look at where the revenue will be between now and then. I guess, so Curtis will be down here, if you'll let me know when, I would be happy to come down and meet with Curtis and kind of go over that and own it, so to speak.
So let me make sure I'm clear. So this budget, which includes a sewer department with an expected negative income, right? That's the tentative budget.
But you said it's gonna be negative, even when Curtis is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it will be.
There's no doubt.
But what we want to try and do is find a way to make that part of the budget not negative. And
So-
amend that between, and then when we have our hearing, come back and say, this is,
So that night, when we have the hearing on the tentative budget,
We can present the idea.
you're going to make an adjustment to this budget
I'm
that
gonna make a
night.
recommendation at that point in time that we
That
do
we-
something with it.
that
And
we
then we
take the
actually
budget.
adopt the budget in our next council meeting officially, if that's whatever the state code requires us to do, which I think that's what it'll require us is to, they'd say kick it down the road, but kick it down the road to the next meeting and then officially adopt it.
Right, we don't have to pass the budget that night. You can do the hearing and then we can adjust, then you, not me, you can adjust the budget for the last meeting in June.
Do you want to move the hearing up into the last meeting in May?
We won't have the
Thinking it's-
certified numbers, will we?
No, so-
Oh,
So they're gonna want to do the same thing.
well, felt like the end of May already.
Well, before you do the final, you have to have the numbers have to be accurate.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then,
You wanna do it to next meeting?
yeah, okay, so if we hold the hearing on May or not May, June 12th. We got one more council meeting. Let's get those sewer numbers into this and the other numbers from Curtis, and then we can just accept the tentative budget in that one and schedule the hearing then.
You can alter this budget and present it on the night of the 12th.
But when we go into hearing is the budget, so if you go
Right.
into a hearing, this is the budget we're showing the public. Now they come in.
Yeah, that's not till June 12th.
This is it. On the 12th.
And you can still change it after that.
Yeah.
This is
So-
this is what they're seeing.
Okay, so,
So do we want to change it in work session or something next week, or next meeting?
right, and then
And then
at that
present
point,
that.
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I lost a
So
whole,
true up the numbers for the next
Yeah.
meeting, we'll put it on.
Yep. We'll look at that.
You can still accept this budget, still set the public hearing, right? Or can they?
Well,
They have to accept the budget tonight. This is the night.
Well, we just had to present it.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, you can.
oh,
you
we've
can-
done it. Okay.
We've done it.
Mayor Ellis is not going to jail. Woo!
Because, yeah, you have to present it in May, then we hold the hearing in June.
Yeah.
So I would say,
Let's put it on work session.
let's put on a
for
work
next meeting.
session to adjust the sewer rate adjustment with the justification.
And with the final.
Well, I shouldn't say
On the
justification,
depreciation.
the reasons for that. And we ought to have those numbers because Curtis will have those.
He's gonna give me the depreciation, that's the number
Yeah,
he's.
that's the part
Because
that,
he's recommended several times, the last one we just did, the bear,
You know,
yeah,
Rate
it was kind of
increase.
a,
Nelson knows exactly how bad we are.
well, I know, I mean, it was
we've
like,
been
I
kicking
was
this
shooting
down
from
the
the
road for a
hip.
long time.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion over and over, and for a long time, we did pretty good until we found out that Payson had been raising our rate and hadn't told us for a couple of years. That kind of eroded our position. So, we've had that discussion, and they're being very good at being upfront
So,
and letting us know ahead of time.
no motion.
Yep.
We'll wait until next week. But
But let's get
I
sewer.
presented you the budget.
Well, let's get sewer numbers in there to reflect
Okay.
where it needs to be so that it's at a positive, where it should be, and have it be on the fee schedule.
And when you say let's, that means let me, Nelson Abbott,
Yes,
work with the rest of the city council
and staff.
and staff.
I mean, when Curtis
We're all
is coming,
together in this, but
Royce, if you'll let me know when Curtis is gonna be here and have those numbers.
That's Friday,
I'll
right?
just swing.
He's coming Friday, but
This
still
Friday.
it's part of our thing, we're waiting on these subdivisions.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that changed the numbers too. Okay,
So
we've accomplished what we
appreciate-
need to from that. We'll put that on the next agenda. Is that okay? Get that okay?
I'm gonna set a reminder to call you Friday.
So I motion that we adjourn this meeting and go back into work session.
We still got-
No, what about
No,
our
fee
number
schedule.
4,
Oh.
the fee schedule?
We're talking.
But you're welcome to make a motion right now and end this meeting. This is,
Talking about sewer fees, and
yeah. Okay.
we just need to accept this, right?
Let's just talk about the
Fee schedule.
fee schedule for services. And
Well, with the price of everything going up, we have to adjust our rates.
it is if you want to continue to maintain it.
Do it somehow, like,
We want to stay in the black.
Maintain a decent budget. Makes no sense for us to subsidize developers
No,
by paying their engineering and inspection fees and
yeah.
TRC meetings and all that good, is that what it's called, TRC? Meetings and all the good stuff, right? Or for the matter, any other matter, any fee. Including residents. That we can, like, build outbuildings and whatever else. Nelson, I know your concern on this was,
well, my concern is, the reason we're doing it is because the engineering fees have gone up. So my question would be, what have we done to make sure that that's the best price we can get? You get what I'm saying? I mean, if Aqua's raising our rate, will LEI or Sunrise or ABC or whomever give us the same services at a lower cost? Because it's one thing to pass, just because it's a pass-through doesn't mean that, from my perspective, that we shouldn't give some due diligence to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. And that's my concern. I mean, I'm not, one way or another, I think it's gonna pass tonight, but that's my concern, and I've stated it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So you'd have to look at it in different categories in my mind. You'd have to look at it as in, okay, when a developer comes in, you know, from my perspective, all of that review and everything that we send out to Aqua should continue to go to Aqua.
Well, sure.
They know the city, they understand the code, for us to backtrack on all that would be, I think, a real huge mistake. For shed inspections or shed plan review or whatever the case may be, right? I think that goes to Sunrise, right? We could try to find a cheaper and yet maintain the same service level.
Right, I mean, I get why we
So-
have the engineers, they protect the city and
Right,
the
but talk
residents.
about Sunrise, where we have the inspections for sheds or whatever, right?
Mhm.
What I don't wanna do is get into a game of, oh, now we're gonna go out, we're gonna go to LEI, but the LEI doesn't, I shouldn't use LEI, X, ABC.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure that we maintain the service level that Sunrise gives us, so, you know, that's hard to know.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying they won't, I'm not saying LEI is any worse or any better, that shouldn't use that. I just wanna make sure that you realize that for us to go analyze this is a pretty heavy tax on the staff. Unless you think we're not getting good service for the dollar.
I know in the past with Aqua, Craig was willing to work with us and send, I don't know if I use the word apprentice, but maybe lesser experienced, that they would bring them in on some of the things where they had the knowledge base in that area, but maybe they weren't proficient in all the areas. It's a way to keep those engineering costs in check.
Right.
Because there are times when we the city utilizes,
Yes.
when we utilize those services, and there's a cost associated with it where there isn't a transfer from a developer or a resident or someone else. I mean, it's just a hard cost that we incur because we ask Shay to work on a code change or something of that nature. There's costs associated with it. And we want to do it right, but
I think that,
it's a
you know, when I
tough
look
pill
at
to
what's
swallow.
going on, I mean, I personally, I think that they've done just what you've asked in the case of the engineering side, that because we don't see Craig.
yeah.
He's
He's a principal and we pay probably
Exactly.
double.
I don't know if it's that, but
Well, it'd be
I
a
think
lot
they're
more.
sending the right level of expertise on the given project that we're dealing with. I haven't had any reason to be concerned about that, and we don't see Craig up in everything.
No.
It just doesn't have to rise to that level. Now,
Usually it's
when we're sitting here and we're gonna build a well, right? I mean, when Craig says he needs to be a part of this, Craig needs to be a part of this. I would never deny that, ever.
Right.
You need that principal engineer, you need to pay those dollars, because it's just too much at stake. But yeah, we follow that. Shay, you wanted to make a comment?
I was just gonna say, when we were brought on back in 2012, you know, we had a little bit of this discussion with Mayor Shelley at the time, and one of the unique advantages that we have, I've got a planning degree. I'm a planner. I've been doing that now for 25 years, but at the same time, I've been working all those years in an engineering firm, managing construction projects for them, managing for several years as I was going through school and some other things, doing design for them. And so one of the things, for instance, when the subdivisions come in for review, I review them first. And I go through and I look at it, and I'm looking at all the code issues, general plan issues, but I'm also looking at engineering issues. And then I sit down with Craig, typically, or another engineer, and they'll sit down with me for an hour or so and go through and review what I have and look at those plans and come up. And so, we're able to try to do that to help keep the cost down when it comes to the reviews on the subdivisions. I guess I come in here, I can answer your basic questions on the well, been able to answer some of these other things that in a lot of situations with a lot of firms, you'd have to have the planner here and the engineer sitting there, just because the way they work is they're totally separate, and they keep themselves separate. So that's one of the things we try to do to provide a little advantage with keeping those costs down. But it's certainly important to look at it.
Well, and that's one thing that I saw in the budget is there's considerably, even though the engineer rates is higher, there's considerably more billed for you than there was the engineer, and I recognize that. When was the last time the fees were raised?
Across the board like this?
Well,
We've had
for the engineering.
onesie-twosies, but nothing like this.
Major, like the engineering. Has it been
It's
5 years? Has it been
about 4 years, right, Shay?
I think so.
Yeah,
That sounds about right.
3.5 years.
And what they're asking is not out of line for industry standard for,
I want the best engineering planning firm involved in our developments. Right? And the developer pays. What do existing residents pay? Right?
I guess the only thing I would say is, you've got these fixed fees, you got like $3,600 plus $50 per lot or unit. And I don't know if somebody come through with like a 3-lot subdivision, they're gonna pay the same as, a guy with a 10-lot. On the base fee. And then, I don't know if maybe there's some, you can look at lowering the fixed fee and maybe raising per lot to kind of make that more fair. Does that make sense?
On the 1 to 6, they do the preliminary and final
We do that altogether.
altogether.
Yeah. So they don't have to go both of them.
Yeah, so
And you still end up, even on the small ones, you still end up bringing in the engineer for the TRC meeting. So that doesn't matter if it's big or small. Other than when they're small, we combine the preliminary and the final.
I guess what I'm saying is I want to make sure it's fair across the board. You're not dinging the guy that's bringing a 3-lot subdivision and the guy that's bringing a 20-lot subdivision is benefiting. I'm thinking maybe food for thought, lowering the fixed fee, but maybe raising the per lot fee.
Right. But
So where it balances out.
we could lose money on that because because it still costs so many dollars an hour to bring your engineer in. He comes down, drives, meet with the folks for a TRC, right? And if you don't charge enough to cover that whole process, regardless if it's a 0 or a 1 or a 10-lot subdivision or 100, we want to make sure we don't put ourselves in a position
What
where
I'm
we
saying
don't.
is, I don't know if it's worth looking at to raising that per lot to where you wouldn't lose money on the overall, but I don't know. That's my own. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. We went through, it was about 2014 or so, if I remember right, when we sat down and we looked at several subdivisions that had gone through the process and played around with this, and we kind of started from scratch. We tried to look at, how many hours are put into a TRC, how many hours are typically put into a review, and trying to figure out what that difference was. And exactly what the mayor said, what we really found was the difference between a 3 or 4 or 5 lot subdivision and a 20, 30 lot subdivision. There's a little bit more review time obviously in the bigger subdivision. But if they're having to put in the infrastructure in those smaller subdivisions, as far as the meetings, you still end up with the same, the same public meetings, the same TRCs, and so we've kind of scrutinized that, trying to figure out how to make that work. And at the time, the city decided the best way was to set that base rate, and then that per lot rate would hopefully accommodate for that.
For the additional.
Knowing that even in that per lot rate, there was a small amount of loss actually to try to make those numbers a little bit lower for the smaller subdivision versus the larger one. And so we kind of looked at several different variations that come through and just tried to find, I guess, the best average that we could find. But there's cities out there that charge a fixed amount, and then they have a statement in there that basically says that the developer will pay more if it costs more. They'll be refunded back if it costs less. There's cities in there that do the same thing as this. There's cities in there that just do a per lot charge, a large per lot charge for them. So there's certainly a lot of different options that you can look at.
I think the only thing I didn't realize that we didn't raise 20% across the board, because if we did, the 50 would be 70.
Wait, I didn't do that.
No, that's, yeah. So some homework's been done there, and that's,
We spent a lot of time trying to.
well, why not just charge the developer the cost? The way the city's taking no risk, and let them pay for it. If he goes up, they pay for it. Goes down, they pay for it. I don't know.
And don't we still do that to some degree. I guess here's the situation, or the question is, just looking at that, at what point do you charge the cost? So if they come in, and I'll give you an example. Somebody comes in, works through the process, and then they're turned down. If we haven't charged them before that council meeting, that ultimately they get turned down, then they walk away saying, oh, I'm not going to pay for anything, I was just turned down, right? And we have to fight to get that money back. So the question becomes, how do you calculate that cost, and where do you charge that? With this, we have developers that come in, and we end up with extra meetings, we end up with extra issues that come up along the way, and I know Royce bills those out whenever they go over this, which seems to be, more often than not, I think seems to be the case in most subdivisions. They end up having issues that push it over.
At the end of the day, the accounting is easier, I think, and the receiving the payment for a small outfit like us. Trying to help Royce out here.
Well, yeah, please help me to not have to figure out all the costs. And I also want to look at where we're at in the city as far as development. We are definitely on the latter part of this, and at this point, I would suggest that, the adjustment for cost, that I think we're close enough that.
Well, I just know we've had a lot of discussion in the city with some stuff lately. Of course, most of that happened, and the costs incurred there, and that's why I just threw it out there. Why not just charge them what it is? I mean, yeah, you can throw this out as a suggested.
Again,
and then we're not on the hook for it.
I don't want to chase people for time spent when they walk away. That's hard.
Well, I know, but okay, so
that really does. So give us your $3,600, your $50 per, and we're good to go. Let's move on.
Yeah.
That's what it's just easy. It's just.
So this reflects adjustments for the engineering side of it. What about the city side?
We did
You get there at Arsenal.
Is there,
And there were a couple that we did last time on the city side.
I just wanted to make sure that we're not shortchanging ourselves there.
No,
There's
we're
more
constantly,
there.
we're constantly watching.
Okay.
With these projects down here.
Because, quite frankly,
It's
the number of
critical.
staff, that's where their wages come from.
Yeah. And if you look at, and right now, where the phase we're in is gonna be more around the building permit fees and whatnot, right? Not the development fees, not the, it's gonna be more on that. And that's gonna wane off real pretty quick, probably after this year, I would imagine. We'll see it start to drop. In fact, we're gonna drop it by half in 19, we're budgeting 50 homes and not. We hit 100 last week or two,
By the end of March, yeah.
yeah, a couple weeks ago, so, which is 30 more than we thought we'd do, or than we budgeted, so. I can take a motion. I'd be happy to have someone put one out on the table for me.
I'll just make a motion that we accept the fee schedule as shown to us.
I need
I'll second it.
Second, and then we need a roll call vote, right?
Yeah. And this one's gonna be by the date.
This is gonna be the ordinance.
18-05-08-1R.
So he really needs to modify his motion to include that.
So I make a motion that we accept the City of Elk Ridge fee schedule
Through resolution.
through resolution 18-05-08-1R.
Perfect. Now I'll take a second.
I'll second that.
Nelson seconds that. We'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Dave. Keep suspense here with Paul.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, Nelson.
Aye.
Passes 4-0 with one absent. That's.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we adjourn and go back into our work session.
Second?
That was.
Who's second? All right.
It's all about timing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.